My name is Dave. I'm one of the pastors here at the church, and we've been going through Romans this summer. We're getting into that transition point where we really start to look outward, and that's something that I'm thrilled to say that here at Paradox we do very, very well. Not only do we have people that are out right now on a camping trip, but there's more that have partnered with various other churches and are in Puerto Rico as we speak on mission. Because that's what we do. That's what we do. Gwen mentioned before this conference that we have called PDX. Those words, maybe you know what they stand for, maybe you don't, but they're our DNA, our core values, what we're actually about as a church, what we want to see happen. We want to see God's kingdom come through people saying, yes, you're my King, Jesus, but then I become part of this team, this kingdom, this army of going, we want your kingdom. We want this world to look like heaven is going to look. Here in our city, in our neighborhoods, in our nation, in the next generation, PDX is prayer. And Jesus said, my house will be a house of prayer for all nations, for everyone. It's almost like this hub, this center that explodes, and there's a point of impact every time we gather together, and it goes outward everywhere, into every nation, every neighborhood, every people. Discipleship. When Jesus sent us out into the world, he didn't just say, go and make converts. He said, go and make disciples, learners. Teach them to obey. Teach them what life looks like here in this kingdom. You're going to have to model it. You're going to have to show them. Because this isn't a kingdom like any others where there's laws and things like that. No, there's people. And if anyone's going to know what life looks like in the kingdom, it's going to be through us. Living life together. Seeing a different kingdom that they are invited into. And then multiplication. I mentioned that we have a mission trip right now, but right as we speak, we have discipleship school getting ready to go. That's what we do. We train up and we send out as a church. We multiply. We have Evergreen meeting just down the road, a church that last month was sent out from this church. Now, y'all, I see the budget. I see empty seats. There's never a time in your life where you go, like Carol, I'm ready. I've got everything I need. But no, we take a step out of the boat. That was the very first thing. Yo, this is just bonus talk, all right? No, do not start the clock yet. When this whole thing, I don't know, they're going to start the clock anyway. When this whole thing started for Gwen and I, like over a decade ago, our invitation from Jesus was to step out of the boat. Maybe you've heard that story before of Peter being in the boat. Jesus walks on water to him, and Peter goes, Jesus, if that's you, I want to be where you are. I want to do what you're doing. And Jesus says, all right, come. We got out of the boat, and we've made a lot of friends. We've made a lot of disciples. We've made a lot of difference. It's been awesome to see. But recently, Jesus has been speaking to me about the next 7 years, the next 10, and the call remains the same. Only this time, it's Dave, get everybody out of the boat. Get everybody else out of the boat. That's all of you. That's people that we don't even know, your neighbors, your family, your friends, the person that could be sitting next to you right now but isn't. That's who we're talking about. We want to see people get out of the boat. I had a moment when Jesus said that to me recently. And if you're like, how did you know Jesus said that to you? Discipleship school is for you, okay? Because that's exactly the kind of thing that we talk about in there. How do you hear from God? How do you respond? What does kingdom relationships look like? So we got out, and I said, Jesus, I don't want to get everybody out of the boat. That sounds really, really lonely, you know? I don't want to be sitting there. And he actually followed that up as clear as anything he said. He said, Dave, since when have you been in the boat? So that's where we're going. We want to be people that get uncomfortable, that take steps out of our comfort, out of what's familiar, into the water to be with Jesus and follow him wherever he's going to go. That's kingdom stuff. That's PDX stuff. That's discipleship school stuff. We're not content to sit familiar, comfortable. We're a church that wants to send out. So we're going to get a little uncomfortable today. I hope you're ready. You ready to get uncomfortable? Sure, yeah. Some of you, there's people leaving right now. No, of course. No. All right, hang with me. Jesus, we thank you that you don't just send us out onto the water alone into things where we feel over our head, into the places where we feel like we're drowning, God. When you sent out your disciples, you said, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them and teaching them, and I'll be with you. So that's why we're here. We're here to meet with you, encounter you, learn your ways, God. Give us the grace, the mercy, the peace, the strength, the knowledge. You have everything that we need. You're a king and a father and a good one at that. So give us what we need to live your kingdom purposes in our lives and to the ends of the earth today. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, I don't want you to get too uncomfortable here today because we have this need for belonging, all right? And we want you to know, like, you belong here. That's what church is. It's a family. Everyone wants to belong, and everyone has also kept someone from belonging. It's the truth. Every single person in this room, we got a lot going on up here today. All right? Every single person in this room has wanted badly to belong somewhere. Am I right? Let's participate. Yes, of course, you want to be in. You want to know that there's a seat saved for you, and you have felt the pain that comes when you feel like there isn't one, right? Imagine that moment where you walk up to a wedding and there's that seating chart, right? And your name's not on the list. Maybe you're having flashbacks, nightmares of showing up at school orientation and going, how could I not be on the list? I'm not in. There's not a spot for me. As in this back to school season, I think back to my first days of high school and college. I was walking uphill both ways in the snow, right? No, I remember I actually grew up at a smaller Lutheran school, and then I went to high school, and I went into public school. And I remember thinking, y'all, I was like, these kids don't know what's coming. All right? They have never met Dave Kubiak before, and by the end of the first day, I'm going to be popular. I'm going to have a girlfriend. I'm probably going to be the captain of the football team. Never mind, I've never played that. Didn't ever play that. I had all these crazy expectations, and I remember, get your awe and your tissues ready, okay? I walked home having none of those things happen on the first day. I was alone. I was afraid. I didn't know anybody. I had no girlfriend. Imagine that, after one day. No, I'm not getting much sympathy at all here, all right? Maybe I'll get you with my first day of college, because then you make friends and you go on to college. And in high school, there's like, all right, this is when you all go and sit down and eat lunch and everybody's there, right? And you find your friends and you sit at the table where hopefully there's a spot. If not, people move over and make room for you. It's great. Then you go to college, and I didn't know what was going on. My first day at Oakland University, I walk into the cafe area, the Commons, I think it was called. I don't know what it was called anymore. I'm too old for that. But I walk in, and I'm looking around again. I had that moment. I don't know anyone here. I have no idea where to sit. So the tears start coming again. Only this time, I got back in my car, and I drove to Great Lakes Crossing. And I got myself some flaming wok. I had tried a sample of the Chinese and everything. But it was only after a while that I actually started to meet some people. And we formed what we called the table. The table, yes. Shannon was a part of the table. She's the one that's cheering wildly for said table. Now, everything was good. Everything was complete. I knew that at any moment, I could walk on campus at Oakland University and find someone that I knew. Even sometimes it happened, sorry, Mom, during class. You could go to the table, it turns out, and there were other people that were sitting there as well. All right, so you would go to the table and you had a place, but wouldn't you know it, some people wanted to bring other people to the table. I did not like this, friends. Okay, they were ruining my table. I actually said this to one of my best friends. I was like, dude, stop bringing that person. They're ruining the table, okay? I wanted them gone from this table because I had a good thing and I didn't want it to stop. We've all had that experience of going, who can I sit with? Where do I belong? Where are my people? Where's my spot? How am I in? And then, once we find it, we've all been in this spot where we start to exclude other people from that. For one reason or another, we've been the ones that decide who's in, who manage the guest list. Maybe we don't do it consciously, but we all do it. If you ever had a party, maybe you've hosted a life group before. You have people that you're excited to welcome in, And let's be real, the person you're hoping doesn't show up, right? It's okay. It's okay. All right, maybe it's just me. I'll be the guy. There's a person, maybe, hope it's not you. It's none of you. Don't worry, it's none of you, right? There's always the person, though, you're like, gosh, they're showing up. They're going to be there. I don't know, maybe it's me for you. Like, is Dave going to be there? All right, there, okay. Now we're relating. Okay. Few of us actively and intentionally do that, though. There's very, very few. There are some in this world that actively and intentionally shrink the table, identify outsiders, and actively work to keep people on the outside. Very few do that. More of us, though, just gravitate towards the comfortable. We like who we like what we like. And here's maybe what it sounds a little bit more like, especially when it comes to church, because maybe for you it wasn't the table, it wasn't middle school or college, maybe for you it was the group chat that you weren't added to. Maybe it was the neighborhood, the team, even the family gathering where you're technically present but functionally invisible, like you are not in this. It could even be the church that you walked into and felt like you just didn't belong. This is not your place. These aren't your people. Where do I fit? Chances are no one is doing that intentionally. But how we do this here at church is we get comfortable and we start saying things like, if you're a Christian, how could you ... Do you feel the line being drawn? No, that's not what Christians do. That's not what we do. Maybe you feel in that, if you're a Christian, how could you vote that way, think that way, watch that show, do this, do not do that, whatever that is. And we're going to get into this. I'm going to touch on it a little bit today. We're going to go hard after it on Labor Day weekend, so make sure that you're here or listen, September 6th. We're gonna get into what my friend Dr. Clarence Hill from Antioch over in Oklahoma, he calls those people. He's written a fantastic book and developed a tool called the Dream Clock. And it all starts with identifying who are those people in your life. The people that are outside of your island of safety. You've created a moat around this, and it's like, no, we protect ourselves against that. We don't want that around here. We don't do it intentionally. And I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not talking about things that God has said. I'm talking about the things that we prefer, the things that we feel personally convicted about even. We draw a line around and go, no, that's on the outside. I don't hang with those people that ... Here's the problem, though. In Genesis 12, God told Abraham that all of the families of the earth. He chooses a family and says, I'm going to bless you, and through you, all families will be blessed. Ever expanding, ever increasing. Isaiah 56, once again, people gravitate towards the comfortable. All right, this heartbeat, the original heart, God's expanding table closes once again because in Isaiah 56, God is speaking to Israel, his people, about worship at their temple, and he specifically is talking about the foreigner, the eunuch, people that were not really welcome in the worship of this God at the table. And he's speaking to them about it, the people that have been considered too different, too outside, too other to belong, and he says, bring them. Look what it says in verse 7. Those people, I will bring to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifice will be accepted on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer. Say it with me. All people, for all peoples. Here's what the small table actually does. That person in your neighborhood who maybe could encounter God through you doesn't. Maybe it's the next generation. We write them off and we say, no, I don't know how they can do that. They're just too ... There's a generation growing up in the church that looks nothing like the world that they live in, so they leave that behind. It's a byproduct of a small table. The immigrant family that we talked about. The person with a different belief system or background who walks in maybe and feels like, no, this isn't for me. And we normalize this. We want to normalize everything these days. Well, it's not that bad. I mean, it's pretty normal to have something that we're comfortable with, something that we're familiar with. Sure, but Jesus doesn't normalize comfort. In fact, Jesus never called any of that normal. He called it a problem. He spent his entire ministry blowing up every table that people tried to make smaller. He would eat, quite literally, with those on the outside of society, outside of the religious system. He would sit down with them. He would welcome them. By the way, he would not leave them as they are. He loved them just as they are, but also, say it with me if you know, too much to let them stay that way. You are welcomed at the table. Everyone was welcome at the table. And when Jesus welcomed outsiders to his, religious people got upset. And Jesus never once stood up and said, you know what, you're right. I'm sorry about that. No, he blew those things up. When we shrink God's table, we miss the people that Jesus is actually actively pursuing. And I want to start there. I know we've been in Romans. We're going to get to Romans. But I always want to start with Jesus, who he is, what he did, how he treated people, what he said. Because Jesus is the fullest revelation of who God is, what he cares about, who he cares about. If anybody ever says to you, all religions are the same, you can say, yes, except for Jesus. Because Jesus is actually the key, the focal point of everything. Jesus is the fullest revelation of who God is. He is the center of our faith. Without him, nothing. So in this story, it's found in Matthew 15. Jesus encounters a Canaanite woman. And this is an uncomfortable story. I said that we were going to get uncomfortable. Because Jesus seems dismissive, especially at first. But at the end, there's a dramatic story of table enlarging that's going to happen. So Matthew 15, verses 21 to 26, says, Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. But Jesus did not answer her a word. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, send her away, for she is crying out after us. Okay, Jesus' disciples, right? They're at the table with him. Annoying demon woman comes in who shouldn't be there in the first place. We laugh because it's a little uncomfortable. And how does the church respond? Get her out of here. Can you please, Jesus, will you please send her away? She's making our dinner a little uncomfortable. You know? Get her out of here. Jesus answers, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's not exactly what you would expect. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. And he answered, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Not exactly what you thought was going to come out of Jesus' mouth in that moment. Am I right? Outside woman comes in, help me, Jesus. And he goes, got nothing to say to you. And she says, please, help me. No, I can't really throw scraps to the dogs right now. Sound like the Jesus that you know. It does not sound like that to me. So let's dig in a little bit deeper instead of just rejecting this outright, okay? Matthew 15, 27, 28, we're going to see her response. Let's not respond with offense of our own. Let's take a look at her response because this is in the Bible for us for a reason. She says, yes, Lord. How many of you, if Jesus calls you a dog, go, yes, Lord. Thank you, sir. May I have another? No, it's not really what rises up in my heart. But she says, yes, Lord. Yet, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. And Jesus answers her, oh, woman, great is your faith. Let it be done to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed instantly. She very well could have responded with what most of us would have responded with. How dare you? Right? I thought that you were I thought you were inclusive. I thought you were loving. How dare you? I know my rights. I watch enough cop cams to know that that's a popular statement right now. I know my rights. I know my worth. I know what I'm owed right now. She doesn't say any of that. She doesn't say I deserve it. I qualify. I have a right to be here. No. She says, even the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. Here's what's going on. She's not claiming a seat. She's not demanding a seat. She's trusting the overflow. We're going to dig into this a little bit more. She's saying, Jesus, your table is so full. It's so abundant that even the scraps that fall off of the edge would be more than enough for me. I just need to be around you. I don't demand anything. I claim no right to anything. I just want to be in your presence because anything from you is enough. That is her posture. She has complete trust in his abundance rather than her worthiness. We get this backwards. We correctly in our culture say, I have worth, but we incorrectly assume that it's because of anything in us. Our worth comes from him. Complete trust in his abundance. Not who she is, but who he is. D.A. Carson puts it this way. The woman's response is not a clever argument to get something from Jesus, right? She didn't trap him. Instead, it is a profound confession of faith. She does not contest Jesus' statement about priority. She accepts it and finds within it grounds for hope. If the children eat first, there are still crumbs, and she's content with crumbs from this table because she understands that his crumbs are more than enough. That is the faith that Jesus marvels at. And in that moment, the table actually gets bigger in real time in front of the disciples who were managing the guest list going, no, there's not enough Jesus for you. No, there's not enough food for you. No, there's not enough space for you. Jesus expands the table. And because of her posture of humility and going, Jesus, but I want you. I want you. He doesn't give her scraps, does he? He says, all right, then come. You have everything that you're asking for and more. She actually has what the disciples were too familiar maybe too comfortable, maybe too afraid to ask for. The person with the greatest faith in the room is actually the one that the disciples wanted to dismiss. That's what they would have missed out on. The greatest faith in the room. Romans 11, let's go there now. Because Romans 11:32 is the theological summary of everything that just happened. Paul says, God has consigned all to disobedience. There's that word again, all. Say it with me, all. That includes us. There's not the morally superior. There's not those that earned their seat at the table and those who did not. All have been disobedient. All have been welcomed to the table. He consigned all to disobedience so that he may have mercy on, say it with me, all. So he may have mercy on all. The Canaanite woman did not have a claim. That feeling of offense that rises up in us. How could Jesus say no to her? Because she had no claim. And she knew that. That's where faith, genuine faith, actually starts. She didn't earn or deserve anything. She did not deserve she had no right to a spot. Here's the truth. And let's unpack this. Neither did the disciples. Neither did those already seated there. They forgot that though. She was aware of it. They forgot it. And because they had no spot at the table, and yet they received mercy. They were invited to this table. How quickly we forget. They became the very ones drawing the line and saying, no, you don't belong here. It starts with the great faith, the humility, the posture of the woman that says, I know I deserve nothing from you, but even a little is more than enough. That's the spot of invitation. There's 3 ways to set a bigger table, and this is what Jesus does. The disciples decided not to do it in this moment. We can decide to do it. You want to set a bigger table? Let's go. All right, one person does. You want to set a bigger table? I hope that you do. Let's set a bigger table. Point 1, stop managing the guest list. Stop managing the guest list. We do these birthday parties and stuff, and there's a reality. A human reality is that you can only invite so many to the party. There's only so much room. The budget's only so much, right? There's only 8 slices of pizza in the Little Caesars, like whatever it is. There's only so many, so we have to manage the guest list. It comes from a scarcity mindset. If I let you in, there won't be enough for me. I'm getting ahead of us though. We decide who's in and who's out, but we forget that we were invited too. Nobody earned their seat, including us. This is what Romans 11 says in its fullness. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. For just as you were at one time disobedient to God, this is to all of us. For just as you were at one time disobedient to God, but now have received mercy because of their disobedience, so they too have now been disobedient in order that by the mercy shown to you, they may also now receive mercy. For God has consigned all to disobedience, that he may have mercy on all. Let's focus in on a few of these things. Verse 29, the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. The calling of God, the gifts, the blessings of God, what he's given, what he's invited. He doesn't take it back. Okay, no, here's what this means for us. You don't do things that then now disqualify you. If Jesus has called you and invited you to his table, he has. He has. Then that's not something that can be revoked. Oh, I did not know you were going to do that yesterday. Never mind. I don't love you anymore. You're not invited into my presence. Do you all feel this at some point? I do on a near daily basis. I believe that I've somehow disqualified myself from the gifts and the calling of God, which are irrevocable. Shame inside of my head goes, Dave, you are an outsider. And then there's something called pride that wants to prove to ourselves that we're not. No. Here's the judo move of the kingdom. When Satan whispers into your ear, you're an outsider, you can go, yes. But even the outsiders are invited in, and you can move on, okay? Stop managing the guest list, even when that excludes you. It goes on. God has consigned all to disobedience so that he may have mercy on all. Nobody earned their seat. God has consigned all to disobedience, and he might have mercy on all. That word all here, all have disobeyed, therefore all are objects of mercy. You can't receive mercy without the first thing being true, okay? But we want to be the recipients of mercy without admitting that we were disobedient in the first place. If you weren't disobedient, you didn't need mercy, did you? Just saying. All have been disobedient, therefore no one has earned a spot, and yet Jesus invites us. A spot is made. It's this admittal. You were an outsider. John Stott puts it this way. He's a famous theologian. Paul's argument in Romans 11 is designed to produce humility, not hierarchy. The Gentile who's been grafted in has no grounds for arrogance toward the natural branch. They were included by the same mercy that can include anyone. The proper response to having received mercy is not to guard it. It's to give it away. I've been watching this show over the summer with Gwen. It's called Paradise. I don't know if anyone has seen this, but in it, there's a natural disaster. If you have seen it, all right, I'm only at the beginning of season 2. No spoilers, but well, I'm going to spoil it. So I don't know why I would receive the mercy of no spoilers, but then spoil it for you. That's an interesting irony, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's in my notes. So I'm going to try hard. There is this, there's this shelter that's been created because a natural disaster is coming. And there's only so much room in it. And there's a psychologist who has dedicated herself to kind of creating an ideal society, a paradise, if you will. And so some people are chosen to be in it, and others have not. And there's this moment where people start to realize that maybe others are outside. Especially when this is about to happen. There's a helicopter with the president and all of his closest inner circle, and they're getting on a helicopter to go to this place, and the people that aren't on the helicopter are realizing they're not invited into a paradise they helped create. And there's a moment there. The psychologist says, you were chosen to be in here. It's this moment where everyone has to go, you know what, I didn't have a right to be in here. It's meant to question us, why are some in? Why are some out? What did some do? And what did some not do? Right, wrong, or otherwise. In this, some are chosen to Come in, be part of the paradise. Someone chose to extend something to you that you didn't qualify for. It's an example of mercy. We talked last week, or 2 weeks ago, about our cries that go, yeah, but is that fair? Is that right? Is that just? And the biblical answer to all of those is yes. God in his mercy, God in his knowledge is fair and good and just. And we are invited into that. We have a role to play. We have a responsibility and a response in that. So I want to start here. Who is someone in your life? Maybe your neighborhood, your workplace, your school, maybe our church, who is living as an outsider. And I want to remind us, none of us earned our seat. Neither did they. And the same mercy that made room for you is available to them. You might be the one that carries them. All right? That's the first point. Second point, we need to move down and make room. All right? This is what kids do so well at that cafeteria table. They scooch. They move down. They make room. God's blessing has no boundaries. It was never meant to stop with you. Psalm 67, verse 1 and 2 says, "May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine upon us." Yes. Amen. Go home, right? No, it goes on. "That your way may be known on the earth, your saving power among all the nations." Psalm 67 has this structure that most people miss. Kind of like my kids, maybe some of yours, or maybe you as well, me, we've all been there, right? Where you hear the first part of the sentence, the part that you want to hear, and then you stop listening, right? "We're going to go get ice cream." Yay! After you clean your room. We didn't hear that part. We just heard the part we wanted to hear, right? So Psalm 67, 1 and 2, we have to hear the whole thing, okay? Verse 1, God be gracious to us, bless us. Yes, isn't that what we all want? God's favor, God's blessing, health, happiness, all of the things. Thank you, Jesus. That's why I go to church. Verse 2, so that your ways may be known on the earth, your salvation known to all nations. The blessing is not a destination. It has a direction. Blessing has direction. God blesses his people so that his blessing would reach people outside of his people. That is true whether it comes to your time, your talents, your treasures. Yes, all of it. Part of making Jesus your king, your Lord, is going, it's all yours. It's all yours. Every minute, every day, my talents, yes, my money, all of the stuff belongs to you. And you give it back freely to me. When we receive the blessings, all of the things that are good blessing, though, and stop there, we hoard it to ourselves in our people. We've actually broken the circuit. We've received what was meant to flow through us and turned it into a reservoir. Paradox. Today is an invitation to break the dam. That's where energy actually comes from. If you're feeling exhausted, like stuff's just not really moving in your life, break the dam. Stop hoarding things, okay? We start to feel this way where it's like, I'm too tired. I need more. I need more. What if you kicked open the door and things started flowing? I bet you energy would come. Life would come. We've been going to the beach. We live out in New Baltimore, and just this last weekend, the beach was full of E. coli. Yuck. Do you know where that comes from? It comes from water that is still. Bacteria flows in, it settles down, and it's allowed to just kind of ferment there and stay. Movement actually kills life. It makes things, lack of movement kills life. It makes things sick. Yesterday, we went to the beach at Marine City. Big, beautiful, St. Clair River, flowing, crystal clear water. Why? Movement. That's what we figured out with things like dams, is if you just put up a dam, all the water builds up and it sits there and it gets stale and moldy and gross and dead. It quite literally stinks. But if you open it up, water starts to flow through quickly. And the more focused it is, the more energy and life there actually is. Break open the dam. Move down. Make room. If you're hoarding all of God's blessings, they may be building up, but there is death in the end. When you open it up, Here's how you make room for more. Giving some away, right? God is happy to continue to pour energy and life and blessing into a dam that is opened up and saying, I'm going to bless. That is what I'm going to use your blessing for, God. He will not let that reservoir run dry. He won't, because it's bringing his kingdom, his purposes, his ways. So, concrete action step, not a concept. What if we made room at our table for an actual person? An actual person who's different. Invite a neighbor over. Have lunch with someone outside of your normal circle. Maybe hang out after church and welcome someone who you don't know. Talk with them. Encourage someone who's been overlooked, because that's what rivers do. They move. They move. Point number 3, all right? Because it can be scary to start moving and giving and serving and being generous and hospitable when we don't trust the host. That's what it comes down to, right? We hoard not because we hate. We hoard because we think, but then I won't have. Who's going to do that for me? If we trust the host, there's more than enough. This is what the woman at the beginning of today did so well. She said the crumbs are more than enough. It's the difference between a scarcity mindset and abundance. Recently, especially, you go to the maybe the family gathering or a potluck of some sort. I've been trying to teach myself and my children, when you go up and there's something that you like, all right? I'm thinking stuffing on Thanksgiving, okay? Just give me the bowl. Just give me all of it. I want it all. And yet, I need to be mindful that not everyone could take the portion that I am taking here. But that's a scarcity mindset. I look around and I go, not everybody can have this much. So I want to be polite and think about that. But with Jesus, there's not scarcity. His table overflows. There's more than enough. There's abundance. Even the crumbs are way more than enough. That's what Matthew 15:27 says. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that have fallen from their master's table. She's not asking for what isn't hers. She's trusting in the overflow. She understands something that the disciples haven't grasped yet. The table that Jesus is setting is so abundant that even what falls off is enough to change a life. Even that is enough. N.T. Wright puts it this way: the woman's persistence is not badgering. It is faith in the form of absolute trust in Jesus' abundance. She doesn't argue that she deserves more. How much of our unhappiness comes from that? I don't deserve this, God. I've been faithful. I've been good. Why do I do this when I stub my toe, y'all? You've had this moment, right? I get into the shower and I bump my head against that shelf that protrudes for some reason. I've actually looked up at the sky and I'm like, really, God? Why? Like, why would you do this to me? Okay? That's not her posture. Like, how could you? No. The distinction is everything. N.T. Wright goes on. It's the difference between entitlement and faith. Jesus rewards that posture with the fullest possible response. I want to end this talking about my dog. His name is Charlie. And we'll sit around our dinner table at night, every evening. Sometimes it happens when somebody's cooking something too. I don't know if you notice something about dogs, though. They know exactly where to sit, right? He doesn't sit by me. He goes and sits by my youngest. He knows where the crumbs are going to fall, right? He knows what's most likely to happen. He wants to go to the place of abundance. He's expressing this little dog-like faith and trust. If I sit here, there'll be enough for me. And when there have been occasions where Charlie demands a spot at the table, he grabs at something that is not his. That is not welcomed. It is not welcomed at our table, okay? But when he trusts, when he stays present, when he stays close, his faith is actually rewarded. And not only with the crumbs. When I see him sitting, trusting, staying present, he has more than enough. He's thrown abundance, okay? But not because he grabbed at it. The scarcity mindset says, you better grab at it because there's only so much and you better get yours. That's what our entire culture is built around, and it's why everyone feels so empty all the time. But the posture that says, Jesus, I just want to be in your presence and receive from you because it's way more than enough. And anything that you give, I can actually turn around and give to somebody else because I trust you. And there's way more where that came from. I don't have to grab on. I don't have to hoard anymore. No, I recognize I've been invited to this table. Everything that I have is a gift from you. It's been given to me, and through it, you want to give and bless others as well. Now you're seated at the table. Now you're in his family, his kingdom. You don't have to have a lot to set a bigger table. You just have to believe that what Jesus has is enough. And then you make a move. One move. Move down. Make room. Because when you make room, Jesus fills it with blessing. Okay? Make room. Get some energy. Get some life back. One person, one conversation, one invitation, one moment where you stop managing your comfort and start trusting instead his abundance, because the crumbs from his table have changed lives, and today they can change one more. Maybe it's you. We're gonna be invited to this table, the table of grace, the table of forgiveness, the table of his mercy and his presence and his faithfulness, and it's an abundant one. You have been invited to it. I don't care who you are, what you've done, what your identity is, what your preferences are, what your voting record is. Every single one of us has been invited to this table, not because of anything that we did, but because of what he did. His sacrifice, his love. He lived the life that we can't to give us the blessing that we did not deserve. So lay it down. Stop trying to earn. Stop trying to grasp on and hoard blessing from God when it's freely given. That's what it means to go, Jesus, I need forgiveness. I need mercy from you. I need help. Just like the woman said, Lord, help. Help me. I can't do this on my own. It's not working. So we come to the table with a posture of dependence and need, saying, Lord, help. And even a crumb would be more than enough for me. I don't deserve it. And anything that you give, I'm willing to give away too, because that's how much I trust you. God's table has always been bigger than our boundaries. You didn't earn your seat. Neither did anyone else. And the mercy that made room for you is available to the person that you've been walking past and ignoring. Go set the table. So I just want to give us a moment to listen today. We're just going to get quiet before the Lord. One name. One person who's different from you. Different background, different ethnicity, different stage of life, different faith, different anything, who you're going to make intentional room for. One name. Let's pray for them, just for a moment. Just decide what one move looks like. An invitation, a text, a lunch, a conversation that you've been putting off. One move. God, your table has always been bigger than our boundaries, bigger than our comfort, bigger than our preferences, bigger than our fear. Give us the courage to set it the way that you do. We didn't earn our seat. Help us not forget that when we're deciding who gets one. Amen.